Okay, so first of all, who are we speaking with? Generally, when we are negotiating with Hamas, are we actually only negotiating with Mr. Sinwar? Are we also negotiating with the leaders that sit in Qatar, in Doha? Who represents today the Hamas? Who do people speak to from Egypt and Qatar? They're not speaking with Mr. Sinwar. We have no indication that Mr. Sinwar is receiving the information from the outside world. We have no indication that any answer we get from Gaza is actually from the mouth of Mr. Sinwar. I remind the viewers that Mr. Sinwar doesn't use any phone or any means of technological means of communication. He writes a little by hand on little pieces of paper. He's somewhere in a tunnel, and some rumors go as far as saying that he might not even be in the strip anymore. An Arabic news organism based in London, an independent Saudi newspaper, claims that Israeli sources would consider that Mr. Sinwar might even have fled towards Egypt, towards Sinai. He might not even be there anymore. In any case, we have no indication whatsoever of where he might be, but also we see that the negotiation is at a complete standstill. Nothing is moving. We do not get any signal from the Hamas that they're willing to set the bar lower, to indicate. We do not see also what interest they would have, if any, in liberating hostages. What would they gain by liberating hostages now? A longer truce that after which we're entitled to exterminate them, more humanitarian aid. They don't care if there is a humanitarian aid. They're not going into the strip. They only care if they get some of it.
If there's no hope for negotiation at this point, how can the IDF, assuming that they've been moved around so many times, how can the IDF find these hostages if there's a major operation in Rafah?
So one, for sure, the difficulty is that they're moving around, so that's a difficulty for the intelligence. Are they all being moved around? We noticed that those who were liberated last week hadn't moved around from the start. They had been in the same place, not far from the kibbutz they were abducted from since the beginning. It all depends who's holding whom, because also this we do not know. We do not know if the Hamas is holding all of the hostages. If it can deliver, would we reach any agreement with them? Can they really deliver and give us all the hostages back? How many are alive? We do not even have a list. All these are a lot of question marks that make the intelligence work very difficult. So that the last resort seems to be, even though it hasn't really borne fruit, the last resort seems to be the military pressure. By now we do estimate that the hostages are massed in under Rafah. That will be the highest concentration of hostages we may find. And if that rumor of Mr. Sinwar fleeing towards Egypt is right, he probably fled with some hostages as well as life insurance.
Ariel, if this is a Saudi report, but it goes again to reveal the issues with smuggling and smuggling tunnels in this Philadelphia corridor with the Gaza-Egypt border. And when we talk about smuggling, these aren't little, tunnels and goods being hand-delivered or thrown. These are massive smuggling operations where entire vehicles and weapon caches and rocket launchers are driven through. There is ample opportunity to smuggle people and persons out of Gaza in this Philadelphia crossing. It's a major Achilles heel for Israel, has been for a long time.
If Hamas has chosen to do so, they could carry that out. There's nothing really stopping them, especially not Egyptian authorities on the other side. I mean, we're looking at Al Jazeera reporter who Israel says is part of Hamas, and he managed to exit Gaza without being on the official documentation of the Rafah border crossing. How did he make it out? That is one question. And another question is, how did Hamas stockpile massive amounts of weapons, train its operatives in Lebanon and in Iran with an Egyptian-Israeli blockade in place for 17 years? How did they manage to do that? That is mainly because due to numerous underground tunnels that enable them to also exit to Sinai, but also to bring in goods from Sinai. Some are wide enough to even have cars pass through them. Israel has has uncovered at least one of such tunnels and shared just how wide this tunnel really is, and it goes to show what Hamas has been using their funds for years. I do think we need to take this report on Saudi Ilaf with a grain of salt, because it's the sources are it's a very specific source, unnamed, and we know that in the past that same newspaper, when it's cited a specific source, it has been a specific unnamed source, it has been wrong in the past. That's not to say that this isn't a possibility, that Sinwar or other commanders in Hamas have fled to Gaza. If that information were to come out, that would be very damning for their image in Gaza, as the death toll nears 30,000, according to Hamas officials. Now, obviously, there's no distinction between combatants and civilians, but if at the end of the day Hamas leadership that brought upon Gaza this war appears to be outside the Strip, that would be very very damning for the group. And it also could be one of the reasons why we're also hearing reports that Hamas leadership abroad is trying to find they're finding it hard to communicate with Sinwar in the most basic terms. So there's even thoughts of perhaps finding a replacement for him. But all this is in the air, because not only Israel doesn't know where Sinwar is, but it is possible that even his own allies don't know where he is.